matchups. So here we see Abquake's Nazoth Paladin. The Nazoth Paladin is evenly favored against the Aggro Shaman as well as Zoo Warlock because of its high board clears and able to neutralize big threats. But because the Hunter has so many threats, the mid-range Hunter from Sankalp should have an advantage over the Paladin. And similarly, we see Cthulhu Warrior, where it has two unfavored matchups, being the Hunter and the Shaman, because the Hunter has too many threats, while the Shaman just outputs 2 damage before the Cthulhu Warrior can actually come online. But at the same time, because of its high-value minions, the Warrior can fight back against Zoo. And the Hybrid Hunter from Abquake has almost even matchups throughout the series. So seeing just on the matchups, you could say that Sankalp has a slight advantage because more of his decks are favored against more of Abquake's decks. But then again, it depends on how each of them mind game each other into picking what decks they want to face. So that will actually be the key part here. And so here we're just waiting for the game to start, and the players are just preparing to battle each other right now. So here, I do believe that Abquake will start out with either the Paladin or the Warrior, because it probably has the more number of favorable matchups against Sankalp. Well, Sankalp, I think, will be starting off with one of his decks which has more favorable matchups, such as the Aggro Shaman or the Zoo Warlock. Big shout out to ESL for making such a big event here and giving Hearthstone the recognition it needs in India. Just getting into game here. So here we see the North Paladin versus the Zoo Warlock as predicted. And again, this matchup is about even, and it all depends on the draw. The fact that the strength that Zoo has is its consistency, that it always gets good draws because that's how it curves out. While at the same time, Paladin, to win, it needs a lot of different aspects to it. It needs to draw its removal, needs to draw its threats, card draw, everything. So it's actually a very difficult matchup in terms of executing it. So in terms of execution, I think the Zoo should have a advantage. But if both players play perfectly, there should be an even matchup. So here we see a decent draw for the Paladin as well as the Zoo. The Zoo has 3 1-drops along with the Darkshire Councilman, along with the coin. So in response, the loot order and the weapons will provide ample ways to control the board for the Paladin. So here we see Abquake is just thinking about his turn, even though he doesn't actually have a move here. He's thinking about his future turns in hopes that he can plan ahead. The strength of the Zoo lies in the fact that it can efficiently trade minions. It gives up card advantage for tempo, in the sense it can trade very small minions into very large minions with creature buffs. But at the same time, it loses card advantage. But this doesn't really matter to Zoo because of the Warlock 0 power, which is life tap, which allows you to draw a card for in exchange for 2 life. And here we see Abquake is thinking quite long for his turn here. So Zeus draws Crazed Alchemist, which is an excellent card because it swaps the HP and attack of a minion and can instantly kill a minion which has 0 attack because when it hits 0 HP, it dies. Here we see what kind of play will Sankalp take, whether he'll choose to coin out 2 1-drops or just settle with the 1. It looks like he is going for the more aggressive play, trying to get into the Paladin's face and going to coin out 2 possessed villagers here. Ideally for this matchup, Nazoth Paladin has to draw its removal, play a lot of big threats, and then play the Nazoth, which is a 10 mana card which returns all your Death Rattle minions onto the board. And he just needs to remove Zoo's threats. The main strength of Zoo lies in buffing its creatures on the board. So as long as the Paladin can keep a clear board, he should win. But at the same time, the Zoo should be aiming to use creatures such as Defender of Argus and other things to keep his minions out of reach of AoE spells, such as Consecration. Now here we have Wild Pyromancer, which is an excellent draw against Zoo. What it does is every time you cast a spell, it deals 1 damage to everything on the board. And because most of the time Zoo is the one who's going to have the minions and not the Paladin, it doesn't really matter if you're going to nuke your own board. And because Zoo has so many 1 HP minions, it generally does really well. Let's see here if the Zoo decides to trade or whether it decides to go face. So he's deciding to go trade one and go face with one more. And here we see the Paladin draws Nazath, which is really not that important in the matchup right now. Might be a bit later. So here we see the Rallying Blade, which is a 3-2 for 3 mana and buffs your Divine Shield minions. But unfortunately, there are no Divine Shield minions, so just use for removal here. Now we have the Darkshire Councilman coming up. So every time he summons a minion, it gains +1 attack. So this minion can easily go out of hand very quickly. And here we see the Equality drawn. So what the Equality does, it changes the HP of all minions to 1. So it's basically a board clear along with the Wild Pyromancer because it deals 1 damage to everything. So he is going to use it here. So there is a little BM going on between the players, all well-natured, of course. And what the Zoo player believes is that because the removal is used so early, there are only 2 copies of Equality in the deck and only 1 copy of the Pyromancer. So it is very hard for him to clear any subsequent boards here. So here we see the True Silver Champion being dropped, which will allow him to heal up a bit, as well as deal a lot of damage to this Councilman. Oh, and here we have Forbidden Tentacles coming up. Probably should be the play here. He's already seen 1 piece of removal, so all these 1/1s should stick and do a little damage. And because this spell is so well synergized with the Darkshire Councilman, because it gains +1 attack for each minion, suddenly now it's a 6/1 minion. Oh, here we see a really good draw here. Wild Pyromancer into a Forbidden Healing. It will allow him to heal for 8 as well as clear all the minions. Now this is the kind of tempo swing that the Paladin is looking for. Now Paladin can really take control here because he's instantly cleared the whole board as well as gained a lot of life and developed a minion himself. So here we see the Dark Peddler coming up, and obviously Power Overwhelming seems to be the choice here because of the burst damage. And the life tap gives him a Doom Guard, which further increases his chance to burst people down. Now here we see the actual power turns of the Paladin coming up. He drops Cairn, clears the minion, develops board, and next he has Tyrion to follow up. And then even if Zoo deals with all of that, he still has Nazath to bring back all these Death Rattle minions. So what is the Zoo going to do? He's going to life tap for some answers here. Probably playing the 1-drops. I doubt he's going to play the Crazed Alchemist on anything, though. I think this is... Okay, he is going to change the Wild Pyromancer to a 3/1, is it? He's thinking about it, because if he does change it to a 1/3, it cannot trade with the his taunt. But if it leaves it like this, he can. But the thing is, if he does decide to do the switch, then he can cast more spells. So here we see Tyrion Fordring, one of the best legendaries in the game. 8 mana, 6/6, Divine Shield Taunt, and equip a 5/3 weapon. The reason weapons are so strong in this game is that it allows you to clear minions while not playing any cards, extra cards apart from the 1 minion itself. So here we see Sankalp. Probably Soulfire is going to be the card going to be picked up, or the Possessed Villager if he's not too sure about having minions on the board. If this ever gets to a point where the Doomsayer is dropped and the Crazed Alchemist is still in the hand, the Crazed Alchemist will instantly be used to kill the Doomsayer off. Sankalp is taking quite some time here. He's really in a tight spot. The reason you would not take Soulfire maybe is because you have 2 Power Overwhelmings and the Doom Guard in hand, and you really would not want to discard that. So that is an alright outcome here, just discarding 1 Power Overwhelming and keeping most of the burn in hand. Is he really going to cast the Soulfire and discard the Power Overwhelming too? I'm not really sure, because Power Overwhelming is really such a key card in this matchup. So still thinking about it. Look at how difficult Tyrion is to deal with. He does go for the Soulfire, giving him the Ashbringer and dealing with the board slightly. Picked up a Kodo here. We'll see what play goes for here. He decides to trade off the Cairn because he doesn't really care about the minion dying, because it all comes back up when Nazath hits the board. Oh, let's see if the RNG is favoring him. Oh, that is unfortunate. Maybe he should have made the attack first. So he decides to smoke it up, putting him in range of lethal, and I don't think Zoo is going to find an answer here, because it doesn't really have any way to get back on board once it loses it.
Put this apple on your head.
So I guess that's it. Well, the Paladin does take a win over the Zoo, which is where, so that means in this format of Conquest that the Paladin is cleared. And so now Abquake only has to win with the Warrior and as well as the Hunter, while Sankalp still has to win with these three, find a win with these three decks.
That is incredible.
A little more BM going on here. Zeus is just waiting here, and Abquake is just emoting him back.
You will pay for that, cur.
So this is actually another example of how the Abquake managed to outthink Sankalp, where he picked the Paladin, which would have had a bad matchup against both the Aggro Shaman as well as the mid-range Hunter. But this this one matchup was one which was favored to him. So he did play extremely well there in terms of deck choices and executed the deck very well. So he just decides to rope. I think he's thinking about his future games, thinking how to counter his further decks. He's just using his time because all this time is his and he can use it however he wants. And he's using it to think of his future matchups and making more plans on how to defeat the further decks. So here we're just waiting for the next game to start. And we can now discuss more about how the other matchups are going to go. So it is 1-0 for Abquake, but this game is far from over. It can be anything from 3-0 to 2-3 in the other way. So here we have Warrior and Hunter left for Abquake, while Sankalp has all three decks. Probably going to lead with the Hunter, yes. So here we have mid-range Hunter, Hybrid Hunter versus Zoo Warlock. And Hybrid Hunter, I think, is like about even with the Zoo. It all depends on who gets the board initially. Both play like sticky minions, both play high-value minions. And here, depending on the draw, we'll see who gets the better matchup. So here we see that the Zoo did draw a lot of its early game as usual. But it's unfortunate for the Hunter because it drew the Angel card here, which is usually a card that you want to get dropped out of the Desert Camel. So what Desert Camel does, it pulls out a 1 HP, 1 mana minion from each deck. And what its strength is in the fact that not many decks play 1-drops, especially not powerful 1-drops. And a 1 mana 2/4 is one of the most powerful 1-drops. But the problem is its Battle Cry deals 3 damage to itself. So essentially, if you play it from hand, it's a 1 mana 2/1, which is pretty underwhelming. So here we see Quick Shot coming out, killing the Knife Juggler, which is an extremely powerful minion when you're able to synergize well with Zoo's way of generating tokens. So Daksha comes out, which challenges the 3/1 very well. And now let's see what the play. Probably going to be the Carrion Grub, which is a 2/5. Now this 2/5 can easily be buffed up to a 4/6, 4/7, which is extremely powerful with the help of the Houndmaster. So I think he has to deal with this somehow. So we see the Abusive coming out, and because it buffs it, gives +2 attack plus, the minion being played itself gives +1. He's able to jail 5 damage to Carrion Grub. Very well done there. And now we see the Eagle on Bow weapon coming out, or is he going to play the Houndmaster? So I think he prefers the Taunt here. He's still thinking about it. The Taunt just buffs it up to a 5/3, which is really not that great because 3 HP is very easy to deal with for Zoo. So he is still thinking about it. So he does end up going for the bow and the 1-drop. Does he? Abquake is under a lot of pressure here because he has to deal with this board. If he does deal with this board, there is really not much threats that Zoo can play after this. There are not much power turns as such. So he does go for the weapon. And he prefers not to take 3 damage. So he does end up trading away his minion, which would have died anyway. And then clearing the 2/1. The Imp Gang Boss, this is really not a great position for the Hunter. The Imp Gang Boss is still at a 2/1 and it's spawning imps. So you'll get at least another imp on it. So here you see a Direwolf Alpha pickup, which is one of the core cards of Zoo because it allows you to buff your tokens and allows you to trade very effectively. So here we see another Imp Gang Boss coming out. And one of the key things about a good Zoo player is about the placement, where you place your minions such that when the minions do go into trades or do get buffed up, you want the exact proper minions you want, like such as Defender Argus or Direwolf Alpha. The placement should be very important. And here we see really good placement from a Warlock player. because he's keeping the minions, Wolf, in between bigger minions. So let's see where the RNG goes here. It does kill off the Flame Juggler, Flaming, which is really good here, Imgang Boss. And here we see the problem with Desert Camel in against Zoo. It is because it pulls out one drop from both. And because Zoo also has very powerful one drops, this is really not that great thing. So Zoo's in a really good position here. And he's going to left up because he's searching for more tempo plays. Here, really, I think the Peddler is searching for another one drop. Maybe something like even like an Elven Arch will be really good because it allows him to instantly kill off another minion. He's going to make the trades first. The Imgang Boss probably going into the 2-4 as well as Abusive. Allows him to generate more tokens. It is surprising that he chose to trade first because the Discover is going to come no matter what the trade. So you would generally prefer to keep the do the trades later after drawing all your cards. Now here we see an extremely powerful play. The Reliquary Seeker, it's a 1 mana 5/5 and you have a full board. Now that is going to be extremely difficult for the Hunter to deal with. Now the Hunter does manage to stabilize this board. He does have Call of the Wild on turn 8, which is an extremely powerful card. Now here we see the huge Toad coming out and the Houndmaster buffing it up. And we see that the Imgang Boss is getting cleared. Now the problem is that the 5/5 probably is going to trade with the 4/4 or even other minions. A tap gives him a Doomguard. Doomguard is a really strong minion because it helps him challenge the board very well. A 5 mana 5/7, and Zoo doesn't really care about discarding his cards. So it does opt to keep his 5/5 alive and trade away all his other small tokens. Oh, that's a really good outcome for Abquake there, where the one random damage killed off a minion. So he does decide to play out his hand because the Doomguard is anyway going to discard 2 cards. And we'll see if this goes face or decides to clear. So this Warlock does decide to go for the full board clear. Now it is extremely hard for the Hunter to do anything because he also similarly relies on buffing his own creatures to get favorable trades. So here we see, I think that is pretty much, because there's no other option except for the Warlock to just go face here because he doesn't have any space on the board to play his minions. And with that, the Tiger being stealth won't allow him to play anything or to trade into anything. So we'll see if it is actually possible for the Hunter to deal 21 damage in one turn, which is unlikely, but it is possible with like double kill command or something. Now Zoo player is thinking whether it's safe to tap. Will the Hunter ever have enough damage to kill me? Should I tap? I don't think he should tap because he anyway does have enough damage on the board. But in case the Hunter player does manage to clear the whole board, he will still be 2 off lethal. Okay, he does decide to pass. So he does play Call of the Wild, which gives him a 4 HP taunt. Now he's going to go face. He's not going to clear minions. So he's going to clear the 5 damage minion. But that really should be it with the Doomguard coming out. And the Defender of Argus also buffing up creatures. This should provide good trades. Yes. So the Doomguard does come out, and that means the Zoo does take a win over the Hunter, as we expected. So here we have it. The matchup is tied 1 apiece. So here then Abquake has his Warrior and the same Hunter left, while Sankalp has his Aggro Shaman and as well as mid-range Hunter. Now the mid-range Hunter should have a good matchup against both Hybrid Hunter as well as Khatoon Warrior. Well, Aggro Shaman does have an unfavorable matchup against the Warrior, but it has a really good matchup against the Hunter. So we'll see what it goes, what they go with. So Sankalp probably will lead with the Hunter because it has favorable matchup against both the decks. So if he does manage to get a win before, say, the Abquake's Hunter does make a win, the Shaman should be able to beat it. So I think this deck choice probably will be the key, where Abquake really needs his Hunter or Warrior to get a win here. If he doesn't want to get boxed into a situation where Sankalp can just queue the same deck and get a favorable matchup in the end. So it is going to be Hybrid Hunter versus the Aggro Shaman. So it is Shaman favored, but Hunter can do Hunter things where he can just seize control of the board and deal a lot of face damage and a lot of burst. So here we see Quickshot being kept in the mulligan to deal with the pesky Tunnel Trogs, which is expected to come out. And here we see the Tunnel Trog does come out, which is a minion which gains attack every time you play an overload card, and it really can get out of hand really fast. So here we see it does not opt to Quickshot it, rather it decides to play the Huge Toad, which is a good move because it generates board presence as well as a way for him to deal effectively with the Tunnel Trog in case he doesn't clear it instantly. So Shaman decides to coin out Surfinly, which allows him to trade away his hero power for another basic hero power. So the problem with the Totem hero power is that it doesn't generate any face damage, while the Hunter hero power it has two. So the Hunter hero power is the best one for smocking it. So Abquake is thinking about it, whether to play the Desert Camel and generate another injured Caldia maybe, or quick shot the Tunnel Trog. It does decide to quick shot the Tunnel Trog because it represents really way too much damage. That is very unfortunate here. That trade, I think, was actually a mistake. He could have actually traded into the Surfinly and still be left with the minion on the board to challenge the Totem Golem. But now he doesn't have a board and he did not clear any minion. So right now, Abquake is in a really bad situation. See, you see the Houndmaster here is completely useless without any beast on the board. And Deadly Shot is really not a good situation here because if it hits the Finley, you're generally not removing any damage off the board. So these cards like Deadly Shot is teched in just to kill the 4-mana 7/7 Flame Breathe Faceless, which really can be an oppressive card if not dealt with instantly because it deals 7 damage to your face every single turn. So here we see Abquake. That is one of the great problems about mid-range hunters because it's forced to play off-curve generally if it doesn't have a board. Here he has to play such as Animal Companion or say Quick Shot Hero Power. So he does decide to go for the Quick Shot Hero Power, killing off the Totem Golem and dealing 2 damage to face. Now there really should be the Flame Wreath Faceless turn. It comes out. And now I really hope Abquake play to RNGesus today morning, because if this Deadly Shot doesn't hit the 7/7, he's going to be in real bother here.
My revenge will be swift.
Oh, that is extremely unfortunate, but again, it's the same problem with the Deadly Shot. It doesn't generate any board presence. So here we see a Lava Burst, Lightning Storm, and that is a lot of damage in from hand. And if this game is over by turn 5, and there's not much really that the Hunter can do. Maybe he can hope for Mish or play Desert Camel, but even the Desert Camel is extremely poor now because he just drew the Inter card here. Just looks like the RNG just didn't want Abquake to win this game. Abquake is going to play out his cards and probably think about what to do against the Hunter here.
Well played.
So it looks like that is it. The Shaman does end up taking the win. So as we see, Abquake have a 1-0 lead. Now suddenly became a 2-1 lead to Sankalp. This is how quickly Hearthstone can shift around. And here we see in an elaborate fashion that the Shaman is finishing off the Hunter, including clearing his full board. So here we have Sankalp just having the mid-range Hunter, and while Abquake does have the Warrior and the Hunter. Now even though Hybrid Hunter might be able to win just have a technical issues here. So coming back to So coming back to the matchups, here we have the Hunter versus the Warrior and the Hunter from Abquake. So even though the Hunter might be able to take a win of the mid-range Hunter, it'll be an extremely difficult matchup for the Cthulhu Warrior to beat mid-range Hunter because it does so well in generating a lot of threats. Just getting into game here. So here we have Warrior versus the Hunter. This is really the key matchup. If the Cthulhu Warrior does manage to take a win here, I think Abquake will be in a really good position. So this is basically like your final game. I think whoever wins this should be able to win the series. So here we have Doomsday, which is an extremely important card for the Warrior because it allows him to instantly stop the Hunter in generating tempo from his tracks and allows the Warrior himself to put out his threats. Now here we see the King's Relic being dropped. We'll see how the joust goes. Oh, it doesn't manage to win the joust. But the reason King's Relic is such a good card is if you do manage to win the joust, you're going to be assured of a card draw as well. You're going to be assured of a really big threat later on. That is why the card is so good, as well as being a beast and being a Houndmaster target and a kill command activator. Having said this, it was really interesting that the mid-range hunter decided to coin out a 2-drop and he doesn't really have any play later on. Maybe he's just hoping to draw a card or just going to hero power pass. And Hunter hero power being one of the most efficient hero powers in terms of dealing damage. It is really not that bad as would be with other classes such as, say, Druid or Warrior, but it's okay. Not really sure what's going on here.
So many choices.
It does say it's the Warrior's turn, but it seems like the Warrior's passed, but there's a kill command randomly on the field. Might just have to reconnect here, just a sec. Okay, and we are back, and here we see that and here we see that the Fiery War Axe was played on turn 2 and did clear the King's Relic. And the Animal Companion did generate Nisha, which is a 4-4 taunt. The Warrior does have response to that, but it's already down to 17 HP in 5 turns. This is the reason that the Hunter is so favored. Now, here we see one of the best cards for Hunter, which is jokingly called Hunter's Legendary, because Hunter doesn't have any great legendaries, but they do have Savannah Highmane, which is a 6-5 for 6, generates 2/2/2 beasts once it is killed. So here we see an execute coming out from the Savannah Highmane, but it still leaves out 2/2/2 beasts here. So here we do see that the Cthulhu Warrior did manage to get his Cthulhu to 10. So cards such as Twin Emperor Weclaw as well as the Ancient Shieldbearer are active, which are going to be key cards in swinging the matchup back around. So the Hunter doesn't opt to play the another Savannah Highmane here. Instead decides to clear the board and put a Houndmaster, which gives him 4/3 plus 2/2 worth of stats on the board. It's effectively about the same, as well as giving him more tempo because of the weapon. And here we see the Grom coming out, and Grom being one of the most versatile warrior cards there is, because it can be used as removal here, dealing 4 damage to a minion, as well as being burst damage or dealing 10 damage to face. So now this is a threat that the Hunter really needs to deal with, and he does have really good cards to deal with, such as Hunter's Mark, Kill Command, or he can choose, if he wants, he can choose to ignore it. So you see, probably the line of play would be a quick shot and face. Okay, decides to go for the Hunter's Mark and probably trade in the face here. And that is one of the key things about Hunter's Mark, is because it changes the Grom's HP to 1. So he's no longer enraged because that is his maximum HP. Here we see the Twin Emperor coming out, which is not that difficult for the Hunter to deal with because of the 6-5. The 6-5 trades so well into the 4-6, and as well him having Kill Command and a quick shot, the other taunt should be easy to deal with. Let us see what kind of burn he decides to use on the Twin Emperor here, whether he decides to go for the Unleash. Yes, he does. So he does decide to go for the Unleash and the Kill Command, I suppose. trading one of the 1/1s and a 5 damage nuke into the Twin Emperor, and probably trade the high main into the other 4 sets, and 4 damage goes face. And here we see that the warrior is left with a very huge board to deal with, and even Brawl isn't that great because high main still leaves up two twos. Shield block is a good draw because it allows him to wait for more time, see if he gets another shield slam, some more removal. So he does get a map, which is actually a dead draw because it's 2 mana for nothing. While this, he just gained 15 armor this turn, which is quite a lot. But if there was a Call of the Wild in the Hunter's hand, it would have been a really big issue. So if the Hunter does decide to trade the high main here, I really wouldn't like that play because then it makes him really vulnerable to Brawl. So he does decide to go against it, which I think is a better play. So he goes for the play around the AoE. Now I think it really should be the Brawl turn for the Hunter, and his best outcome would of course be the 1/1 being left. If something such as the 5/5 or the 6/1 is left on the board, I think it will be extremely bad. So he does top deck and execute, which is perfect for him, and now he has almost three favorable outcomes, while only the 5/5 being stealth is a really bad outcome for him. This turn probably is going to play the map as well. Oh, and that is really unfortunate here because the 5/5 beast does remain on the board. But it's still alright because if he does get an answer for this 5/5, he'll be in a really good position where the Hunters run out of cards and the Warrior can swing back with cards such as Justica, which allow him to gain a lot of armor. Looks like this is going to be like the all-in turn where the Hunter just puts out his whole hand and decides to go face with everything. I would like the attack here because it prevents the Warrior from really going with a weapon into the 5/5 efficiently. So Harrison comes out. I really don't know if it's going to be played here. It does destroy the weapon, but it still leaves the 5/5 and the 3/2 on the board. The Harrison and the Disciple can be here to just leave 7 power on the board and allow him to keep like at 1 HP post next turn. Okay, that if he does go for the 3/2 here, it might be a misplay because if that missile does go face, it'll be a big problem. Oh, that was unfortunate. He should have played the Harrison first. Looks like that is going to be it. And the Hunter does manage to take the victory. And he does end up drawing the Call of the Wild. And does BM for good measure because why not? He has just won 3-1. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we have it. The winner of the Hearthstone finals in the ESL India Premiership Challenge Cup 1. And Sankalp is going to take it 3-1. So many congrats to him and my commiserations to Abquake. It was a very well played game here. And props to both the contenders for coming here, being sent as the top 2 players in the nation. And both of them are going to and I'm going to wish them the very best for their future as well as for the Masters series. So that's it from me. And I